Winx was bad? Shocker. So I just spent the weekend watching Fate, the Winx Saga, and I hated it. No surprise there. I think what was surprising was how much I hated it. This is just a short video. I'm too busy focusing on school to go in depth of how trash this is. I'll save that for April along with a long video about Jane the Virgin and 13 Reasons Why. This video is only going to discuss two things that I feel the show could have done to be better. It still wouldn't be good, and I'll get into the reasons why in a different video, but I think there are things it could have done to not be terrible. 1. Make an original series. This idea came to me because of watching Eric Carter's video about the Jumanji films. One point that he made really got me thinking. Welcome to the Jungle is a fun and slightly goofy action comedy, whereas Jumanji 1995, its prequel, was more of a horror movie for kids. The tones of these two movies aren't the same and the plots are very different. The only thing that you can say connects them is the title and the small nod that they make to Alan Parrish from the original. The point is, as a standalone movie, it's fine. There isn't really a reason why they should make it a sequel, but now it will be compared to the 1995 version and become an unfaithful sequel. Now, let's revisit Fate. Let's list the similarities between the two series. Yeah, that's it. I can assure you that if the title changed and the names were changed, I would not be able to tell that this is a reboot of the Winx. The themes are different, the tone is different, the plot is a complete departure from the original, and then of course they changed the characters' races. Now with this last part, we've all heard about it. When I first saw them stand like this, my first issue was the outfits, and then the question, where's Musa? She was my favorite, but I couldn't find her. I don't believe that having too many white characters in a series immediately makes it bad, but after seeing such a diverse set of girls be turned into this, I understood the importance of diversity. So let's just ask that question again. Why would you call this a reboot, or even say that it's based on Winx Club, then whitewash the characters? If this was an original series, I don't think they would have gotten as much backlash for this. And after watching the show, I was only more disappointed because there is absolutely no reason why these characters had to be white. For any of you thinking, but this isn't Flora, it's Tara, a completely new character who's plus size with a refreshing spin-off. Stop right there. Tara is Flora's replacement as a fairy with plant-related abilities, and also, there are plus-size Hispanic actresses who exist, so sorry. I can't follow your logic there. And secondly, I don't like the way that they handle Tara as a plus-size character. Listen, this isn't set in the 80s. No one is mean to larger people to their faces. It would have been more refreshing if she was just plus-sized, and no one mentioned it. Watch a takes video on the funny fat woman trope for a deeper dive into this issue. So all this, minus the whitewashing tangent, just to say that having this be tied to Winx Club really holds the show back, as they are making the show be compared to a series that, even though it wasn't amazing, was iconic for many young girls. If they ditched the idea of attaching the show to Winx Club like a parasite feeding on the nostalgia and focus on an original series, they could have changed one other element that would have made a huge difference. 2. University, not high school. Okay, let me take a moment to compose myself now because I know I'm about to get into why this show upsets me so much and other movies and series that have a boarding school fantasy. Okay, a boarding school fantasy. Basically, it's when the writers want to show with a lot of mystery, drama, and adventure set in a boarding school, but there's little evidence to suggest that they've done any amount of research into how modern day boarding schools work. Now, I haven't spoken about my personal life that much, but one thing I want to discuss on my channel is my experience with boarding schools, but I've never had much of a reason to. Until now. So I've been to 3 boarding schools from the age of 12, and I can assure you that I am yet to watch a movie or a series that actually depicts a modern day boarding school. Now, if you think it's unfair for me to talk about a boarding school in a broad sense because not every boarding school is exactly the same and Winx is a fantasy, there are elements of each boarding school that I've been at that usually apply to each boarding school. Let's talk about security. Althea in the live action reboot is surrounded by a barrier to keep the burned ones out. Gosh, I hate that name. But it's also to keep the students safe inside and away from the burned ones. So here's the thing. Why can't they just walk out of the barrier like this? I think it would have been more realistic for the school to have a wall in front of the barrier so that idiots like Bloom don't get themselves killed. I have other issues with the burned ones, but I'll get into that another time. Another issue is the lack of roll call/bed checks. What parent would send their child to a school where they could just not spend the night in their room and the staff wouldn't know about it? Speaking of staff, where are they? We've got 3 teachers, where are the rest? This is why we get these dumb parties where literal children are drinking and smoking on school campus. Am I the only one bothered by this? And don't give me that, well, school isn't set in our world nonsense, because while there is magic, they are still people in the sense that they can be killed, injured, and affected in the same way that we are. Bed checks and roll calls are necessary to know where people are, and many schools employ a sign-out system so that the student is always able to be found. The schools that I've been to also have a strict rule about no boys in girls' rooms and vice versa. This is because if two students get together and one student ends up pregnant or ends up with an STD, the parents will hold the school accountable and call it negligence. Boarding schools and parents make an agreement that while the child is there, they will act as their parent. This is why some boarding school rules are so strict, so as not to break the trust agreed upon with the parents. So, if your child has drank themselves senseless at this school, would you say the faculty was being responsible in that scenario? And if you're thinking, well, maybe the kids were doing this school could have put systems in place to avoid all this recklessness. They could have had chaperones at the party as well as roll call and lockup or bed checks to prevent students from just going missing. So why should this be a university? Parties without supervision and sleeping in boys' rooms is more realistic in this case. It makes more sense for the girls to be complaining about being treated like children because they'd be in their late teens/early 20s and not 16 years old. They kept saying first year, second year, yeah, that's a uni thing. It would make more sense why they're being pressured to fight if this was a higher level training school. Telling Sky and everyone to follow orders would be more realistic, whereas in this show, they're just child soldiers. Lastly, the actresses get to act their age. Listen, yeah, I'm 18 and I look like this. But usually teenagers look like this. Stella's supposed to be 17. Ma'am, you're not younger than me. Okay, one last thing. So, if the burned ones cut you, you get this infection that will kill you unless the burned one that cut you is killed. Fine. Fair enough. But then what's this so-called armor? I'm not saying I want them to be like knights in shining armor. Yes, you are. Yes, I am. The burned ones don't seem to be able to cut through hard materials that well because if this was the case, they could have easily broken through the doors when they were being barricaded outside the school. So this uniform isn't helping anyone. Okay, I'm just gonna go cleanse myself by watching some of the original transformations. The thing is, Winx Club wasn't a good show looking back on it, but I'd rather sit through the first few episodes of the original series than rewatching Fate. Why? Because Winx Club had a soul. Hi everyone, thanks for watching. I might ask my sister to join me to do another video about this because writing a script out about this series forces me to think about it, and this show can only make sense if you don't think about it that much. Did anybody actually like this show? Do you know of anyone who unironically enjoyed it? Let me know in the comments below. I've heard some people say that they liked the transformation, but they were obviously bots trying to get publicity for the show. But I'd really love to hear your thoughts on this series, and maybe I'll discuss some of the comments with my sister. Until next time, I'm just a squirrel. Thank you for watching.